Hi, Robin. Thank you so much for joining us today. I, hold on, because I already introduced you. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. Got ahead of myself. Okay. Welcome, Robin. Thanks so much for joining us today. I wanted to just start our conversation with you telling us a little bit about yourself, because I always think it's important that myself and the audience know who you are and how we came to align together.
Absolutely. So yes, I'm another Robin. Um,
Yay!
a fun fact, I recently turned 60 a few weeks ago. So I am in this phase of life where I am so excited. I'm embracing the kind of Japanese philosophy of living life in sections of thirds. So I am moving into my third act. And I'm really excited about seeing what is ahead. And I'm very excited about all the adventures. So I did join Kathy Heller's Abundant Ever After class and program, and I learned a lot about the energy, and I met some amazing people, including you.
Aww.
And I'm really excited to continue on with some connections in my, as I call it, my third act.
First of all, I cannot believe you're 60 because not that there's a certain look for 60, but I would have thought 40. So your third act is a young act. Energy matters. That I think that's something that you and I both really were introduced to when we took that course. But I think we've always known how important it truly is for all aspects of life. And so during your time, you had created Energy Matters with Robin Berlinsky. And one of the things I'm curious about is, how do you apply energy into some of your daily things that you do that resonates with other people?
Yeah, so that's great. So so in my day job, in my 9 to 5 day job, I run a nonprofit, and I have employees, and my job every day is to get up and support them, to be their cheerleader and make sure that they are excited to serve children. Our mission is to serve, bring arts into the schools. So we work in South Carolina providing arts programs for schools. So my job is to support my staff and make sure that they have the energy, the excitement, the enthusiasm, the passion to get kids excited and motivated. So I live by 3 pillars that I tell my staff every time we are in a meeting, or I am talking with them. I remind them of our 3 pillars, which is to live in a constant state of gratitude, embrace the woohoo spirit, and to operate in a space of yes. So that gives us the energy so that we're all using that same vocabulary, and we all can talk to each other and lift each other up and make sure that we're serving the students in South Carolina the best way that we can.
So many things you just said, it just resonated with me. But words, I think words are so important in life in general. I think the words in which we choose to use creates an energy within us, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, whether it's high, whether it's low. Those are choices that we do have and can make and can change. And that is included in all aspects of life. That can be from work to relationships to your own health. The other thing that I love that you said was, living in gratitude, because I think so often we are overwhelmed, and we have, social media is great when used properly, but we sometimes don't use it properly. And it becomes one of those things that changes the way we feel about ourselves. And then we're not living in gratitude for what we have, or, just really what we have going on. And I think that's important. I think we need to shut that down. Sometimes it's really not great for our health either. It causes a lot of overwhelm and stress and unneeded unconscious thoughts that they don't have a purpose for us. They're not really serving us in a good way. So I love that you have that culture that you're creating for your staff, because I think when people get to work in an environment like that, it makes not only their job more fun, but it also really helps with their health and wellness. So again, if you're somebody who's listening to this podcast and you don't have an environment at work like the one that Robin's speaking of, that might be something to think about. How is that serving you? How is that working for you? Definitely not saying quit your job. I'm just saying, think about how things could be different if the vocabulary and you had pillars at work. And if you're the boss, or, just something a little bit to think about, to take away. The other thing I love that you said was the space of yes. I get such pushback from people with what I do, because it's health and wellness derived, but I get a lot of, I don't have time for that. It's too overwhelming. I can't fit it in. So to me, those are all no's. And so my question back, and a lot of time, is the time, and so my question always in return is, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. What we do with those 24 hours is truly up to us. And we have to look at the way we're setting up our day to have the best day, and that then in turn will help us have better health. So saying yes to something in a way that feels right for you. And one of the things Robin and I talked about a little bit before this is the 1% shift. Nobody's telling you any task that you say yes to has to be a 360-degree turn, a 180, 1%. That could be waking up 10 minutes early. It could be just saying something nice to yourself in the morning. I mean, there are things that literally don't have to take a lot of time, but that changes the energy within you. When you say yes to things that are going to support what you want as an outcome, it motivates you a little bit. It gives you the permission to then open up. So I think, Robin, in talking about all of that, what are some of the things you see within your business, right? With the people you work with, how do you see these three things serve them?
Well, two things, and thank you for that. I love that you love that. Our pillars are great. With the gratitude piece, one thing in particular that we make sure we do is, for us, gratitude is not just about writing a handwritten thank you note, which we do. When we have staff meetings, we all make sure we sign all the cards so that when it's time to send one, we have all the signatures, because we work remotely, so we're not always there to sign a card. But the gratitude isn't just about like, thank you so much for volunteering at that event, or thank you so much for donating this money. It's also about, thank you for being in our lives, meaning we might send a card out that is like, we're so sorry you lost a loved one, or we're so sorry that, this happened to you, whatever it is in life. So the gratitude is about reaching out to recognize somebody, to see them and let them know that you're thinking of them. So it's gratitude that you're in this world. So that's one way we look at it. And then with the space of yes, something that we do at work and how it impacts our work is the operating in the space of yes gives us that permission to explore something deeper. So by saying yes to something, we're not necessarily saying, yes, we're doing that exact thing you just said, but we're saying, that's interesting. Let's explore that further. And I always use the example that, we're going to have a Boeing airplane fly over the recess yard at school and drop all the art materials out for the kids to run around and grab, right? So that's crazy. That's a crazy idea. So if you weren't working with us and living under our pillar of operating in a space of yes, you would tell me all the reasons that's unsafe, that Boeing is certainly not going to waste gas and or waste fuel and fly over a school and drop materials, and on and on and on of all the reasons that's unsafe. And that would be true. But for us, operating in a space of yes says, oh my gosh, that's a crazy idea. Let's explore it. What else what could be fun? And you may end up that the fire department comes and hooks the hose up and they spray the kids while they're out at recess, or, something crazy enough that the kids are going to love it, but will always land somewhere that's going to have an impact. And it's not just a straight no. So for us at work, operating in a space of yes is giving permission to explore something deeper and land somewhere just as fun, but maybe not at that exact thing.
I love that. That's awesome. It's giving permission. I love that to not feel like you have to do exactly what might be being asked of them, but to get curious and to go into it a little bit with a different perspective. And when you said that, what the whole like looking around, what resonated with me is evidence of reasons. Whatever we think, we can always find evidence of. So for example, if somebody says, oh no, I'm trying to think of something, but somebody says, like, don't run across the road because it's dangerous. You could list all the reasons why it's dangerous, but you could also list all the reasons why it doesn't have to be dangerous if it's done in a safe way. And so I think it's reframing, right? Reframing the thought process of when you're asked a question, because we go to the immediate of what we've encountered in our life rather than seeing what could be possible. And so I love that you challenge your employees to do those things. And again, if you're someone listening and you are somebody who always goes to the no very quickly, it would be a really cool investigation if you got curious, and when that popped up next time, to kind of back up for a second and say, well, what if I got curious about this and maybe tried something in the realm of it, but maybe not all the way, and then just see how it feels. I think a lot of it is giving permission to have the energy to go into things with a different mindset.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I know you worked in the schools and with kids and all of that. And one of the things for some of my listeners that I think is a parent struggle is the homework thing, right? So I don't care what age your kids are, whether they're in kindergarten or whether a senior in high school, obviously it looks different. And it looks different, especially when they're a little older, because they're handling things mostly on their own. But I do feel like no matter what age, there is a parental challenge sometimes with that particular thing. So I would love to hear your take on how to spin homework in a different way that doesn't feel like you're attacking your child all the time. Like, are you doing it? Are you keeping up? Why does it say 0 in the grade book? Like all the things.
So I love this question because I do work with parents, and I do have a great solution. Now, you have to take this with the mentality of, like, when you change something in your life, like your eating habits or your exercise routine, and you're not going to see results tomorrow, right? Like, you're not going to eat spinach today and tomorrow those jeans fit. Like, it's going to take a little bit of time. Consistency is what is key. So this is my advice on homework that is going to be, like, over time, you will see incredible results. So the younger your child is right now, the more opportunity you have to actually make an impact on homework, like in 2nd grade or 5th grade. So if you have a 2, 3, 4-year-old, listen in, because this is going to be life-changing. Okay. So every state, has the standards. They have whether it's Common Core or you have your own state standards, it's what every student needs to know by the end of that grade. And what's super cool about it is it's pretty easy. Once you get in and understand it, there are basic concepts that every state has, every grade level has, and it's things like counting from 1 to 10, counting by 5s to 100, or life science, the life cycle of a plant, or geography, understanding the, social studies, the history of your own state. Like, there are things that are very specific, but also very general. And I'll give you this example. So in South Carolina, 2nd graders study magnets in science. Magnets is in our standards. And by the end of 2nd grade, the students should understand basic vocabulary, like attract and repel. Okay. So here's where the thinking long-term comes in. So if you have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, the more you can play with magnets now and use them in ways where you're using the vocabulary like attract and repel, and talking about the poles of a magnet and having fun with magnets. Remember, it's all about play. There's no flashcards. You're not drilling and killing this concept. You're playing with magnets. Like, oh, this sticks to the refrigerator. Oh, why doesn't it stick to the chair? Let's talk about it. Well, by the time, if you're doing this over time, consistently having fun with magnets, but using it in an intentional way with vocabulary that's bigger than your 2-year-old or 3-year-old's language at the time, that's okay. Just use it. By the time they get to 2nd grade and magnets are introduced, it's going to be like teaching your child how to put their head on their pillow. They're going to be like, well, of course I put my head on my pillow. That's how I sleep every night. This magnet test will be the easiest thing they've ever done. And when they get home and they tell you there's homework and magnets, they're going to say, let me show you this. It's so easy. And it will be a blip. So the more we do early on, having conversations, it's like backward design. But again, as long as it's not kill and drill, it's not flashcards, you're not making your 3-year-old sit down and study long division. That's not what this is. It's simply, as a parent, knowing what's coming up in future grades and starting to talk about it now when they're young is the easiest way to make homework a breeze, to make homework a blip. Actually, your kids will be so excited because they feel so smart that no one else in class knew this. I knew everything there was to know about force and motion because we've been talking about this for 5 years. It's part of our daily routine. So that's my advice about homework. It's sort of like, you it's like wanting to lose 50 pounds before the dance on Saturday and it's Tuesday. It's never too late to do it, but if you're in 4th grade and you're trying to make up time for magnets, it's probably like you should focus on 7th grade, maybe like start looking at.
You missed that though. You might want to just
homework will be easy in 7th grade, but that's my answer to that. And it really does work. I did not help my kids. I helped them with nothing, no homework, never. They just did it because it was so natural. It was like, let me get this over with. This is so easy.
So, and I, being a teacher in my former life, I totally get that because standards are very common for us. For the average parent, they have no clue what that is. And so doing a little deep dive into maybe what some of those standards are might be helpful. I feel like the disservice for our children isn't so much in, even if we didn't do magnets with them little, we can always do magnets with them at the time when the lesson is to help them understand better from a fun perspective rather than the flashcards and the drill and kill. But I feel like our kids are not set up to be very self-sufficient when it comes to sitting down and just hammering out their homework and doing the things, because I feel like some of the energy in the classroom doesn't make them want to come home to do those things. So I think that's a classroom situation that probably needs, a little addressing. Not because of the classroom teacher, but because of all the stuff that comes down from the top down, basically. Some of the things you said, though, apply not just to like your magnet theory, but it applies really to everything in life. And the sooner we can talk to our kids about different topics and start exposing them to things and making it more of a natural process, then it just alleviates stress a little bit as they get older. And so one of the things I'm thinking of is the concepts. Obviously, my brain goes to health and wellness, but there's very little in school that deals with health and wellness. And so unfortunately, that comes from your home environment. And then you deal with what was your past experience and exposure and all of those things. And I feel, and I say this all the time to anybody in my community that hears me, there needs to be some changes in schools so that these are part of that curriculum, part of those standards that we're looking at, so that when we are trying to have our kids be their healthiest version by mind, body, and soul, there's a launching pad, not just from home, but in all areas of their life. Again, when you were talking about standards and things, words, it always goes back to words. The words that you use create the energy around you. And so if you make movement a fun thing, right? Because there's even standards for PE and standard. If you make movement a fun thing, then when those kids go to PE, those are fun activities. They're not like the dreaded mile run or whatever, that sit and reach and all, like the standardized test that they do in PE. So if you, in your home, if you have movement conversations and it is part of your family lifestyle, going to PE isn't like it is for the kids who dread any kind of movement because they're very sedimentary in their home life. So I do think, again, words and environment does play into but the energy you bring matters. The energy in which you introduce concepts, whether they're 0 or whether they're 20. And I think in the homework phase, I always think, I just ask my kids, I try to get curious about what they're doing. Not that I even understand half the stuff they're doing at this point, because it's, I was an elementary school teacher. So like my high school and college years are, a little fuzzy, but I try to just ask them curiosity questions rather than Did you do your homework? Did you study for your test? It's like I try to flip the script of what I'm saying to bring a different energy, because it is very different. Like, hey, I saw that you're having a psychology test. Ooh, I love psychology. Like, what topics are you talking about? I'm so interested to know how the mind works, rather than, did you study for your psychology test? I saw all the stuff that your teacher's sending home. Did you get your, study guide done? Like, it's just, instead of question, it's like, just tell me more. And I think with our adulter children or older teens, that's so important, because they're shutting you down at that point, or they want to shut you down. And so it's like, just having engaging conversations, I think, is so important.
Yeah, and that's making me think of Labor Day. So we just had Labor Day, and I posted something on Instagram because it's about like words. I love what you're saying about words and conversations and stories. So how stories are emotional. Emotion, helps us remember things. And when I was in school, we memorized timelines, and I remember thinking, I quote, hate social studies. Well, I love ancestry. I love researching, like, where is my family from? Like, why did I think that I hated social studies? Well, I hated it because we memorized dates and it meant nothing to me. So Labor Day, I posted something that was fun because it would be a story. It's words that you could use. Like, did you know the first Labor Day was signed in as a national holiday in 1894 by Grover Cleveland? Well, big deal. Your kids will say, who cares? And you say, but listen, Grover Cleveland, this is so cool. He's the only president who has served 2 non-consecutive terms. He was our 22nd and our 24th president. Like, you just kind of talk about it, make it interesting. And then, for us in South Carolina, social studies, between the years of Grover Cleveland's presidency, are in our 5th grade standard. So again, those conversations that you're having, like, in a fun way, you can kind of laugh about, whatever Grover Cleveland's mustache looked like. Like, nobody has a mustache like that anymore. Like, just fashion or anything that we can think of to make it fun and make it emotional and connect it. Then, like you said, when they're having that psychology test when they're 16, maybe there's something you talked about back when they were 7. And it's like, remember, not that Grover Cleveland was a psychologist, but like, maybe there was something.
Sure. A connection.
Some connection that you can revisit when they're teenagers and be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And you kind of talk about it. So I love that you said words, because it is so important. And the words turn into the stories, and the stories connect to the emotion, and the emotion keeps them remembering the content so they can do really well on that test.
I was just actually having a conversation with my daughter, who's a senior this year, a couple of days ago. And one of the comments she made was, well, that class, yeah, I got an A, but I would study, I took the test and I forgot the information. Like, that was her thing. And so I said, okay, well, this isn't happening in this class that she's currently in this year. I said, what do you think the difference is? And she said, well, my teacher's making it more engaging, and I like the material, right? And I find it more interesting, and it's something I can actually apply to myself, and thinking about other people around that are surrounding me and how it applies to them. I'm learning to visually learn that, like to feel that, and it was such an interesting conversation, because it's so true for all of us. Whatever we're interested in, we're going to remember and learn, and it's going to stick with us a little more, because we're attaching that emotion to it. We're attaching that feeling to that particular thing, and it lights us up, and that's then creates good energy. I'd love to experiment with something that isn't that, right? But then create it to be a little bit more lighthearted and connective, and have some more connectiveness, and see how that would differ. So I'm going to experiment around with that just within our own family. The other thing that I loved that you said, because I preach this all the time, is that change is not overnight. You are not going to a party on Saturday and on Tuesday having the thought, I really don't like the way I look. I want to do X, Y, and Z. From Tuesday to Friday it's not enough time really for a lot to happen. Now, you can get a haircut, you can do certain things, but you're not going to drop 4-way size. You're not going to do the things that you think are your goal, right? But really what you're looking for is to feel better before Friday or Saturday, whenever that party is, so that when you go, you're happier with yourself. And so the overnight success isn't ever a thing for anything in life. no matter if it's health and wellness, business, education, it's all the same thing. So that is a commonality thread between all of them. And I always talk about like the little shifts because the overwhelm gets people. And so if we can break things into very minuscule little shifts, although it doesn't feel like a lot at that moment, as you march through time in a year, when you look back and all those little tiny things that you did, they add up to something bigger. And for me, that's a lifestyle rather than a quick fix. And so you could study for that test and you can get an A and you can forget all the material, or you can work at it little by little and you can learn over the years and put it all together and have a more memorable experience that will last with you for longer and help shape who you are, really. And once again, bring your energy up. You know, it brings lightheartedness, and whatever lights you up, that's where I think people get stuck, because we've been so conditioned to do for all others that we then forget about ourselves. And it's like, you need to take some time to figure out what you're passionate about, figure out what purpose you have and who you can serve with that purpose in order to continually fill up your bucket, which makes you a better human, makes your energy better, and then you're a healthier person. And also, I love that you have created nonprofit stuff. I love that you've created companies. I also know that you love to travel. You have such a diverse amount of things that you do, but your one commonality is the energy in which you bring to everything. You're so positive. You know, you've got good philosophies and pillars that you instill in others. So you're serving those people as well. And so, you know, we can all learn something from you. Are there challenges? Of course there are, because we all have challenges. I call those the dark and the light. It's like, you are going to go through a challenge. It's going to be a dark time, but you're going to come out on the other side where there's lightness and gives you better energy. So before we wrap up, I always ask all my guests for a couple of non-negotiables. And what I mean by that are non-negotiables are things that you, Robin, do or live or have or need on a daily basis that helps you to be the best version of yourself, which creates the health and wellness that you desire in your life.
I love that question. So I'm a morning person. I always have been. I fizzle out around, 3, 4 o'clock, but boy, am I wide awake at 5 a.m. I never set my alarm. 7 days a week, I pop out of bed anywhere between 4 and 6. It's just, I've always been this way. And my non-negotiable is that I keep that my time. So even though I'm up early, I don't open my email. I don't start scrolling social media. I take that time because it's dark and it's just so beautiful. It's so quiet and there are birds and I play music and I meditate and I think and I just spend that time in stillness. And that is a non-negotiable. I will not turn it into anything else. I'm not going to jump on a treadmill. I'm not going to turn it into anything but that me time. And it really sets up the day. And then I have a second non-negotiable, which is around turning 60.
Okay.
And I remember Dick Van Dyke. I just remember this years ago was asked something about him. Like he was spry and running around. I don't even know how old he was. And I'm like, whoa. And someone asked him, like, how are you like so active? And he said, before I get out of bed, I stretch and I move all the time. Like I stretch like crazy. And so turning 60 has inspired me in my third act. I need to be spry. I need to be jumping on stage. I need to be energized and excited and talking to people and running around. So I stretch every morning. I make sure that in my practice of silence and being in the stillness, I make sure that I'm stretching and moving and really getting my body so that it's not comfortable being still. And so I guess that stillness of the morning creates the space where I can energize my brain, my spirit, and my body and really make that my non-negotiable for my third act.
I love that. First of all, I'm like just absolutely loving the whole, third act philosophy and idea and, something that you live by. And, one of the things about being in your third act is the wisdom that you have, right? You bring so much to the table because you've had life experience, because you've had the ups and downs, you've had the dips and the successes, you've had good energy and not so good energy, you know what's up. And so I think people like you who have this phenomenal energy about them need to be on stage, right? You need to be empowering other people to get to where you are sooner, a little bit sooner. I'm not saying in their 20s, because everybody's got their growth patterns, but there's no reason why we have to wait till 60 to have that feeling. We really need to teach people to gravitate towards that a little bit sooner and find their purpose, and I think that's all. Like, your purpose obviously is education, it's energy work, but it's also empowering people. You do it within your job. I can see it. I mean, you're just lighting up as we're talking, and I see that, and it's refreshing, but it's also energizing for me to be with you in your presence, even though we're on Zoom, so I think if you haven't dabbled in the onstage presence, that definitely, hopefully will be a possibility for you, because I think a lot of people would benefit from being in your presence with your energy. So I hope that comes to fruition. If it's something that you're passionate about and are looking to do.
It is. It absolutely is. Give me a microphone and I'm all in.
That's awesome. Very good. And especially in education, I am very passionate about education and nonprofit. It is what I did, and I always say my former life, but it is part of my story, and it is what got me to where I am today, because I am so passionate about teaching people, but not just giving them the information. I'm about empowering them to seek their own journey, to find out their information within. But to do that, you need a teacher type of person to lead you, to guide you, and a coach. And so that's why I became an integrative coach, because I really found a passion for health and wellness through my journey after having kids and growing up and having experiences. And, that is something I think people lack, just like in education. I feel like the educational system lacks a little bit. And so people like us can help people make a little bit of a shift within each. And again, it's just that 1% shift, right? It's not an all in or all out. So I thank you so much for coming on today. I look forward to continuing watching your journey unfold. For anybody who's interested in following Robin, I'm going to drop a bunch of stuff in the show notes, her links, her social media, her email, and of course, a picture on social media so you can see how beautiful she is and how energetic she is. Okay, so without anything else, I would like to say thank you again so much for coming on, and for you guys tuning in. We will talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Have a great day, everyone.